What is up? There are over 30 main series Pokemon games, and we're gonna rank them all in this tier list. We have to figure out which games are S tier and which games are D tier. I do want to go over why I put every game where I put them, but definitely let me know in the comment section below, where would you rank these games? Also make sure to like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. So we're starting off with Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and little fun fact, this is my favorite Pokemon game of all time. Soul Silver is my personal favorite, and it's gotta be S tier. But obviously, I'm not just being biased. For me, this game is the pinnacle. When a new game comes out, I often think to myself, okay, how does it compare to the Soul Silver? I know that that's a bad habit to have, but this game is just so incredible that I always just, in the back of my mind, make that comparison. 16 badges, regional travel, and then to top it all off, in the post game, you fight against Red on top of a snowy hilltop mountain. On top of a mountain, you're fighting one of the greatest trainers of all time. It's just epic, you know what I mean? And also, like, when you bought it, it came with that little Pokemon, like, you know, back when you had to count your steps and stuff like that, like the little Pokemon ball you put on your pants, man, dude. But it's very hard for a Pokemon game to like surpass Soul Silver to me. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver have to be an S tier. I mean, that's an easy layup right here for me right there. It's gotta go right. Nowhere else is it gonna go besides S tier. Up next, we have Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And I'm gonna be honest, these two games were a massive letdown. I'm gonna break it down. It's gonna be a very low score for me. It just didn't deliver. You know, I think when you look at other like remakes that we have gotten, like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where it took the games we loved and upped it to the next possible level and made it even more incredible. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl just played it so safe. You know, it just gave us the same games over again with the chibi art style, and I'm not even a fan of that art style to begin with, so even more so I didn't like it. And it's like, to just give us the same games bar for bar with no changes, no nothing. It was literally the same games of like, you know, Diamond and Pearl. If that's the case, I would just play Platinum, bro. If I want to play Diamond and Pearl, like the same game again, I would just play Platinum. The better game. So like, it really just didn't deliver, and I was really hoping that it would kind of get that, you know, ass treatment, but it didn't. You know, it really just, it felt so lacking in every single way, and for me, this is going to be a D tier. Just not how I want to see like a beloved game get remade, you know, and get an upgrade, because it only, honestly, it was a downgrade. Speaking of Platinum, that's going to be up next year, and Platinum is also amazing. I mean, the distorted world, it is literally taking the best attributes of Diamond and Pearl and amplifying them, you know, putting the highlight on Giratina, and it was just an amazing ride. I mean, for me, Platinum is definitely S tier. I'm not going to put it above, like, you know, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, because obviously, like I said earlier, that's my favorite game, Soul Silver. So, I mean, obviously. But if someone told me they like Platinum as their favorite game and it's S tier for them as number one, I could understand why. You know, I think obviously when it comes to these like spots, it gets more of like subjective to what's your more personal favorite. But both of these games are goated, and Platinum's gotta be an S tier. I mean, absolutely one of the most goated Pokemon games ever made. Moving on, we now have Pokemon Black and White, and I really do love Gen 5, dude. Chandelure is one of my standouts, like one of my favorite Pokemons. Obviously, my number one Pokemon of all time is Dragonite. Don't even argue with me. Best Pokemon ever made, but enough about Dragonite. Like, I love Black and White. I think the story is incredible, and obviously moving on to Black and White 2, it gets even more amplified with the World Tournament and everything else, and just increases that love of these games. I will put Black and White, though, in A. I think it is incredible, but I think just me personally, I do like Black and White 2 more than the original Black and White. So I will put Black and White 2 in S after Platinum. And I think Gen 5 needs more love. I feel like people do very much love these stories of Black and White and the Pokemon in them, because we really got just a whole new world there, like from top to bottom. Up next, we have Pokemon X and Y. And now X and Y is a tough one for me, because I do love Mega Evolution, but X and Y as a game itself is not good. I don't like it. Hold on. Let me make my case. Because Mega Evolution, like, to me, is one of the best mechanics we've ever gotten. Because with Mega Evolution, not only, like, you know, I think it's one of the perfect ways to make Pokemon more interesting. Because you can have Pokemon who were kind of lackluster, didn't get much love, give them a new form, and make them more badass. Or take beloved Pokemon that are awesome and make them more badass. So, like Mega Evolution was amazing to me. And I feel like no other mechanic we've gotten, from Z moves to, like, you know, the crystallization, like, they've grown on me, like, with time, but nothing has ever hit like Megas, in my opinion, as far as like that next step for Pokemon. And X and Y did give us megas, and I will give it that credit. But besides that, I really don't like the games. I think it was they were trying to like ease everyone into the new Pokemon like and the new device for Nintendo. I think the 3DS and all that kind of stuff, and they really kind of played it too safe, and the story was so lackluster and kind of felt soulless. It just wasn't really like entertaining. I just really didn't really grasp towards X and Y. So I will put it in C. I won't give it like the D treatment. Only because of megas. Like, if this game didn't introduce megas, it would have been in D tier for me. But because it did give us the Mega Evolution and kind of like introduce us to that amazing mechanic, I will give it C, but I can't give it anywhere higher than that. Now we have Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and this is how you remake a game. Okay, pretty much better than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in every single way. Just took the story of Ruby and Sapphire and amplified it, gave like Groudon and Kyogre new forms, all the primals. It was just amazing. I mean, I even remember like the comp scene of that time with like the primals being involved, and it was just exhilarating. Like the perfect example of how we want to see a remake happen. After like seeing the flop of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it made me appreciate these games even more. So I will be putting Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire in A tier. It even gave us new megas too, for the starters and even more Pokemon. And I just love these games. I mean, it may be a hard choice here for most people, but for me, it's an easy A tier. Now, up next in the tier list, we have Pokemon Legends Arceus, and this game broke new ground for me. Just growing up as a kid with the Game Boy and the link cable, all that stuff, and to see a Pokemon game that's like as open world as we've ever seen it up until this point was just amazing. Obviously you can talk about the nitpicks here and there, but just as a Pokemon lover for my entire life, just being able to walk around in the open world and just a new way to play the game after so long of kind of being formulaic, this game was amazing for me. I loved it. I really want more of this kind of style, different Legends games for different legendary mythic Pokemon. And Arceus, it was just so enjoyable, and refreshing. Just like I said before, to have just a new way to play Pokemon. So this for me was an easy A tier, and I'm gonna put it up here just because I really did enjoy the fresh new mechanics and the new take on a game that's so old at this point. We've grown up our entire lives playing Pokemon, and to have just this new take on it really just felt like something that we needed for like just a wake up call to have new things pop up for us. We now have Pokemon Sun and Moon, and I'm not gonna lie, at first I was just like so mad that they kind of dropped the Mega Evolution, and it took a while for me to like gravitate towards the Z moves. But I must say, after a while, it grew on me, and the way that you go about doing the trials, it was much different than the gym badge like scenario that we're used to, and that felt very refreshing. I think after after you get adjusted to the new world of Sun and Moon, the more it grew on me, like it aged like fine wine. So I will put it around in B tier here. I do think Ultra Sun and Moon definitely took everything to the next level, even more so. But it grew on me a lot more. The more I kind of sat with it, the better the game became to me. Here comes Fire Red and Leaf Green, and I think these games are actually criminally underrated. I think people do not give Fire Red Leaf Green enough credit. Very much enjoyable games, and I really don't understand why it's not in the conversation for like one of the better Pokemon games. I do think it gets overshadowed by obviously amazing titles like Soul Silver, Platinum, Emerald, and that kind of stuff. But I very much enjoy this game. For me, it's gonna be an A tier. I'll probably put it around here. I do think it's definitely a little more underrated and deserves a lot more love from the fan base. We already covered Sun and Moon, and here is Ultra Sun and Moon. Like I said earlier, it does just increase the love of these games to me and just amplified it in every way. So I will give that like low A tier, just above Sun and Moon. But like I said, the more the game kind of sat with me, the more this gen really just amplified my love for how creative they went with it. Because it was definitely so much different than traditional gym badges and stuff like that. Very much similar stuff I said for Sun and Moon, but just amplifies all the things we loved about Sun and Moon in the first place and made it higher up for me in the tier list. Up next, we have Pokemon Sword and Shield, and this game was a bit of a letdown for me personally, because this is when they started to give like DLC for Pokemon games, and obviously like Sword and Shield's main game didn't really have much of a post game because of that reason. But I really feel like every other game we've had such an enriching fun post game. At least most of them all did. And to like exclude that just to kind of sell an extra DLC, it really started to like cheapen it a little bit for me. And I wish they would still put as much love and care into the main game, because we're still paying for that fully. and I didn't like Hop either. Maybe I'm biased because I don't like Hop, but I'll put it in C next to X and Y. Next, we have Pokemon Emerald, and I might be like biased here or like blinded by nostalgia, but I love Emerald so much, dude. Like, easily one of my favorite games, and Rayquaza being one of my favorite legendaries. But come on, it really just took the best parts of Ruby and Sapphire and just amplified it. It really just, like, you know, kind of honed in the games, cut out all the extra fluff, and just gave us a great Pokemon game. Also, I do love Zangoose, so I'm gonna put him in. I will put Emerald. It's a classic. When I think of like best Pokemon games, I think Soul Silver, I think Platinum, I think Emerald, Black and White too. These are my easy like day one games I can replay whenever and get that same excitement every single time. Now this next one is a bit of a more touchier Pokemon game, just because it's pretty divisive. When Pokemon Scarlet and Violet first came out, it got a lot of hate, you know, I think because of some of the bugs that were happening, the laggy moments, the frames dropping, and that did really put a negative spotlight on Scarlet and Violet. But in my opinion, this might be a bad take, but I did like the story a lot. You know, it really touched on some dark topics, really pulled at your heartstrings, and the open worldness of it is always a big selling point to me. Just because, you know, being able to play Pokemon game and like be out in the open and see the Pokemon walking around and they follow you and be able to ride them around, like it's just awesome. And even the DLC and area, like the Area Zero, like it was just all amazing for me. I'm also a really big fan of regional variants. Just a nice way to kind of have a spin on Pokemon that's kind of gotten stale for a while, that we've known for years, and give them a fresh new look, new abilities or new forms. I'm a big fan of that. I think it's a good way to keep the roster and the Pokedex feel fresh. So I will be putting Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in A tier. I really enjoyed it. I do wish the, obviously, day one bugs that we were getting didn't happen, because I think it put more of a negative light on the game that didn't deserve that much hate, the hate that it got. Now, like I said, this one might be one of the most divisive placements in the entire tier list, and we might have to talk about it, but I think the game was great. Up next, we have the OG Diamond and Pearl, and I do like Platinum the most. I think this Platinum just overshines these two in every single way. You know, when you look at this trio of games, Platinum is the pinnacle, right? These two are more the afterthought because this just took it to astronomical levels of peakness. So I will put it around here in B. It did set the tone for the future game to come that, you know, took the crown, but it's a great game. Like, you know, you really can't be mad at Diamond and Pearl. Like, you know, Palkia and Dialga are incredible legends. But I think Platinum just kind of overshines it just way too harshly. Now we have Gold and Silver, which obviously, like I said, these are the classic games. When you look at Gold and Silver, Red and Blue, these games kind of like were the building blocks for what we got as more incredible games. Now, like Gold and Silver, like I do remember the days of having my Game Boys and, you know, having to use like a flashlight so I can see the screen and stuff like that. So it is just classic. And I think that obviously, like, you know, when you look at Heart Gold and Gold Silver, it took the formula and just perfected it, right? So when I look at these games like Red and Blue and Gold and Silver, I will pay them respect and give them like B. I feel like B is a solid tier, just a great game. These are the building blocks. Even like Yellow, you know what I mean? I do like Red and Blue more than Yellow, but I do remember the days of just having like the link cable and my Game Boy. And obviously these are the staples that led to what I consider to be Pokemon's greatest heights of the series. You know, you really can't, even like Crystal as well. Like these are like the building blocks that I will give respect to. But obviously, you know, they are dated. They are older games, and they still hold up to just have that nostalgia and fun. But like the formula was perfected by these beasts over here. You know what I mean? So I will give like them their respect, probably like in this order. But really, you have to look at the greater things. Even like Ruby and Sapphire, like much like I said earlier with Diamond and Pearl, how like Platinum just overshadowed these two games. Very much like with Emerald, like as well, how Emerald was the best of the trio and just overshadowed Ruby and Sapphire. We did get an amazing game though. For Mega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, like the Delta episode, like, you know, flying into space, like incredible, dude. This is how you remake a damn game. Dude, Diamond and Pearl remakes, oh, laughable. It was the same game, copy and pasted. If I wanted to play Diamond and Pearl again, the same as that game, I would just play Platinum. Like I said earlier. No way. So like obviously, like I said before, I do like Ruby and Sapphire more than I like Diamond and Pearl. I just like this gen a lot more. That's more of just a personal preference. But Emerald did perfect, you know, these two games, much like how Platinum did for Diamond and Pearl. And lastly, we have the Let's Go games. I mean, these are just like blind fun. Really not much like insane value to me in these. I'm not really a fan of the chibi art style that they had in like Diamond and Pearl remakes and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not gonna like, shit on it, but like it wasn't really like, just like a very forgettable kind of just a game to pass the time until we get that like next main series game. And here is my tier list. Let me know what you all think. Obviously, I do want to have a conversation with the comments and everyone here and kind of like see what you all would rate these games. What kind of tier list would you make? Comment down below what your tiers would be for each Pokemon game and what's your favorite. Out of all the Pokemon games, which one is your favorite? You already know mine is Soul Silver, alright? Best game ever made. Don't even argue with me, okay? It's over. Also, I would love to know what your favorite Pokemon is. Mine is Dragonite, by the way. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.